My husband and Mill told me to terminate my pregnancy. I left and had my baby alone. Now they want to be part of my daughter's life. Hi everyone, I'm Emma, 28F, and I need some advice about my situation with my husband Jake, 30M, and his family. I'll try to give you the full story so you can understand everything that's been going on. I grew up in a small town called Binghamton with my mom, Tori, 50F. She raised me as a single parent after my dad left when I was just 6 months old. I never knew him, and my mom doesn't like to talk about him much. All I know is that he wasn't ready to be a father and took off in the middle of the night. Money was always tight for us. My mom worked as a waitress at the local diner during the day and cleaned offices at night. Despite working long hours, she always made time for me. We didn't have much, but she made sure I never felt like I was missing out. She'd save up all year to buy me a special Christmas gift or take me on a small trip during summer break. I started working part-time at the diner with my mom when I was 16. It was tough balancing school and work, but I wanted to help out and save some money for the future. My mom wasn't thrilled about me working so young, but she understood why I wanted to do it. After high school, I made the decision to skip college and go straight into working full-time. A lot of my friends were heading off to university, but I knew we couldn't afford it, and I didn't want to burden my mom with student loans. Plus, I'd always been more interested in gaining real-world experience than sitting in classrooms. I got a job as a receptionist at a local real estate company, Wilson & Associates. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady and had potential for growth. I worked hard, always volunteering to take on extra tasks and learn new skills. Within a year, I was promoted to administrative assistant, and by the time I was 23, I had worked my way up to office manager. My mom was so proud of me. She'd always worried that not going to college would hold me back, but seeing me succeed in my career helped ease her mind. We were finally in a place where we didn't have to stress about money all the time, and I was even able to help her cut back on her hours at the diner. I met Jake when I was 24 and he was 26. It was at a friend's barbecue. I almost didn't go because I was tired from work, but my friend Amy convinced me to come. Jake was Amy's cousin, visiting from the city. He was charming and funny, and we spent the whole evening talking. Jake came from a more well-off family. His dad, Tom, 57M, owned a successful construction company, and his mom, Linda, 55F, was a stay-at-home mom. Jake had gone to a good college and was working as an accountant at a big firm in the city. Despite our different backgrounds, we hit it off right away. Jake was impressed by how I'd worked my way up in my career, and I liked that he was ambitious and had goals for his future. We started dating long distance, with Jake driving down to Binghamton on weekends or me taking the bus up to the city. After about 6 months of dating, Jake got a job offer in Binghamton. He said he was tired of city life and wanted to be closer to me. I was thrilled. It felt like everything was falling into place. At first, everything was great. We both had good jobs and were able to afford a nice apartment. Jake's family seemed to like me well enough when we visited them. Linda could be a bit overbearing at times, always talking about Jake's ex-girlfriends or hinting that I should go back to school, but Jake would always defend me and tell her to back off. We dated for 2 years before getting married when I was 26. The wedding was small but beautiful, just close family and friends. My mom cried happy tears all day, saying she never thought she'd see me so happy. The first year of marriage was wonderful. We talked about our future, made plans to buy a house, and even started discussing having kids in a few years. I felt like I was living a fairy tale. I had a great job, a loving husband, and a bright future ahead. Things started to change about a year ago. The real estate market in Binghamton took a hit, and Wilson & Associates had to downsize. I was able to keep my job, but my hours and pay were cut. It was stressful, but Jake and I figured we could manage if we were careful with our spending. Then, a few months later, Jake lost his job. The accounting firm he worked for went through major layoffs, and he was let go. It was really hard on him. He'd never been unemployed before and took it as a personal failure. I tried my best to be supportive. I picked up extra hours at work when I could and we cut back on all non-essential spending. Jake spent his days job hunting, but nothing seemed to pan out. As the weeks turned into months, he became more and more discouraged. That's when Jake's parents stepped in. They offered to let us move in with them temporarily to save money while Jake looked for work. I was hesitant. I'd always valued our independence, and I knew living with Linda would be challenging. But Jake insisted it would only be for a short time, and that it would really help us get back on our feet. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We packed up our apartment and moved into Jake's childhood home. From the start, it was difficult. Linda constantly criticized everything I did, how I cleaned, how I cooked, even how I dressed. She'd make snide comments about my lack of education and imply I wasn't good enough for her son. One incident stands out in my memory. I was doing laundry one day when Linda came into the laundry room and started reorganizing everything. She said, "Oh, Emma, you're doing it all wrong. This is why people who grow up without proper mothers struggle with basic tasks." I was so hurt and angry, but when I told Jake about it later, he just said his mom was trying to help and I should be grateful. Tom mostly stayed out of it, but he never stood up for me either. He just retreated to his study whenever Linda started in on one of her criticisms. Jake's reaction was the most disappointing. Instead of defending me, he'd often side with his mother or tell me I was being too sensitive. I tried to stand up for myself at first, but it only made things worse. Linda would cry and act like I was attacking her, and Jake would get mad at me for upsetting his mom. Eventually, I just started trying to avoid her as much as possible, spending long hours at work or going for walks around the neighborhood. Things came to a head about 2 months ago. I'd been feeling off for a few weeks, tired, nauseous, emotional. I thought it was just stress from our living situation, but then I realized my period was late. I took a home pregnancy test, and it was positive. At first, I was thrilled. Jake and I had talked about starting a family someday, and even though the timing wasn't ideal with our financial situation, I thought it might be just what we needed to bring us closer together and motivate Jake in his job search. When I told Jake, his reaction was not what I expected. He got really quiet and said we needed to think about whether we could afford a baby right now. I was hurt that he wasn't more excited, but I tried to be understanding given our circumstances. The next day, Jake told me he talked to his parents about the pregnancy. Linda had apparently convinced him that we should consider terminating the pregnancy, saying we weren't in a position to be parents. She argued that having a baby now would ruin Jake's chances of getting back on his feet career-wise. I was devastated. I told Jake absolutely not. I wanted this baby and I would find a way to make it work even if he wouldn't support me. We had a huge argument, with Jake saying I was being selfish and not considering his feelings or our financial situation. For the next few weeks, the tension in the house was unbearable. Linda constantly made passive-aggressive comments about how children were such a burden and how some people weren't cut out to be parents. She'd leave pregnancy pamphlets around the house, all focused on the difficulties and risks of pregnancy. Jake avoided me most of the time, and when we did talk, it usually turned into an argument. He kept pushing me to be realistic about our situation, but I knew he was just parroting his mother's words. I started looking for a place of my own, realizing I couldn't stay in that toxic environment. When Jake found out, he begged me not to leave. He said he was just scared about the baby but he wanted to make it work. He promised he'd stand up to his parents and be more supportive. I reluctantly agreed to stay and try to work things out, partly because I did still love Jake and partly because I wasn't sure I could afford a place on my own with a baby on the way. That brings us to last week. I came home from work to find Jake, Linda, and Tom sitting at the kitchen table waiting for me. Linda started in on a speech about how I needed to contribute more to the household since I was living there rent-free. She said that since I was keeping the baby against their wishes, the least I could do was pay for my share of expenses. I was shocked. I'd been working overtime for months to help support Jake and me while he was unemployed. I'd been buying groceries and helping with bills as much as I could. When I pointed this out, Linda scoffed and said that clearly wasn't enough. The final straw was when Jake chimed in, agreeing with his mother that I needed to pull my weight more. He suggested I ask for more hours at work or look for a second job, completely ignoring the fact that I was 4 months pregnant and already exhausted. I'd had enough. I went upstairs, packed a bag, and left. I've been staying with my mom for the past week, trying to figure out what to do next. Jake has called and texted nonstop, alternating between apologies and accusations that I'm overreacting. I don't know what to do. Part of me still loves Jake, but I don't know if I can forgive him for siding with his family over me and our baby. I'm scared about the idea of being a single mom, but I'm also scared about raising a child in such a toxic environment. Am I overreacting? Should I try to work things out with Jake? Or should I start planning for a future as a single mom? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1: It's been about 3 weeks since I left Jake's parents' house, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments on my original post. It really helped me gain perspective on my situation and gave me the courage to make some tough decisions. After a lot of thought and several long talks with my mom, I've decided to file for divorce. It wasn't an easy decision to make. Despite everything, there's still a part of me that loves Jake and wishes things could be different. But I've realized that Jake has shown me time and time again that he won't stand up for me or our child. I deserve better, and so does my baby. I met with a lawyer last week to discuss my options. Her name is Melissa, and she specializes in family law. She was recommended by a friend from work who went through a divorce last year. Melissa advised me to start gathering documentation of Jake's behavior and his family's treatment of me. She said it could be helpful if we end up in a custody battle. I've been keeping a detailed journal of everything that's happened, writing down specific incidents and conversations as best I can remember them. I've also been saving text messages and emails from Jake and his family. It's been hard to relive some of those moments, but I know it's important to have a record. Jake's behavior since I left has been all over the place. Some days he calls me crying, begging me to come back and promising he'll change. He says he's realized how wrong he was and that he wants to be a family. Other days, he's angry and accusatory. He's called me selfish, saying I'm trying to ruin his life and take away his child. It's emotionally exhausting, so I've blocked his number and am only communicating through my lawyer now. Linda has been on a smear campaign in our small town. She's been telling anyone who will listen that I'm unstable and trying to trap Jake with a baby. She's even gone so far as to call my boss at Wilson & Associates, trying to get me fired. Thankfully, my boss has been understanding and supportive. The rumors and gossip have been hard to deal with. Binghamton is a small town, and news travels fast. I've lost a few friends who believed Linda's lies, but I've also been surprised by how many people have reached out to offer support. My friend Amy, the one who introduced me to Jake, has been especially great. She's been bringing me home-cooked meals and offering to go with me to doctor's appointments. Speaking of work, I've started looking for a new job. Even though my boss has been supportive, I don't want to risk running into Jake or his family at my current workplace. It's scary to think about starting over, especially while pregnant, but also a little exciting. I'm determined to build a good life for myself and my baby, no matter what it takes. I've been researching jobs in the neighboring town of Riverdale. It's about a 30-minute drive from Binghamton, but I think the distance might be good. There's an admin position open at a marketing firm there that looks promising. I've sent in my application and am keeping my fingers crossed. My mom has been amazing through all of this. She's letting me stay with her as long as I need and has been helping me research programs for single mothers. We've found a few local organizations that offer support services and financial assistance. It's not going to be easy, but knowing there are resources available has helped ease some of my anxiety. The hardest part of all this has been dealing with the emotional fallout. Some days I feel strong and empowered, ready to take on the world as a single mom. Other days, I break down crying and wonder if I'm making a mistake. But then I remember how Jake treated me, how he was willing to pressure me into terminating a wanted pregnancy, and I know I'm doing the right thing. I had my first prenatal appointment last week. Hearing my baby's heartbeat for the first time was an incredible experience. It made everything feel so much more real and reinforced my determination to do whatever it takes to protect this child. The doctor says everything looks good so far, which is a huge relief. I'm trying to focus on self-care and preparing for the baby. I've started taking prenatal yoga classes at the community center. It's been a great way to relax and connect with my changing body. I've also been reading every parenting book I can get my hands on. It's overwhelming to think about being a single mom, but I know I can do it. There's still a long road ahead with the divorce and potential custody battle, but I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm nervous about what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm also hopeful. I'm rediscovering the strong, independent woman I used to be before I let Jake and his family tear me down. To everyone who's been asking how they can help, thank you. Your support means more than you know. If you can, please just keep being there. A listening ear or a kind word goes a long way right now. I'll update again when there's more news to share. For now, I'm focusing on staying healthy, preparing for my baby, and building a new life for us. It's not the life I imagined, but I'm determined to make it a good one. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and things have been moving quickly. The divorce proceedings are underway, and it's been a challenging process, to say the least. Jake initially contested the divorce, claiming I was being irrational due to pregnancy hormones. His lawyer tried to argue that we should wait until after the baby is born to make any decisions. They even suggested that my decision to leave was a form of abandonment and could be used against me in a custody battle. Thankfully, my lawyer Melissa shut that down quickly, pointing out that leaving an emotionally abusive situation is not the same as abandonment. We had our first court appearance last week for a preliminary hearing. Jake showed up with Linda, which I honestly should have expected. Before the hearing started, Linda tried to approach me in the hallway outside the courtroom. She was all smiles and a fake concern, asking about the baby and saying how much she missed me. I could see right through it, though. My lawyer intervened before I had to respond, thankfully. During the hearing, Jake's lawyer painted a picture of me as an unstable, gold-digging wife who was trying to take advantage of Jake's family's generosity. They brought up my lack of college education and tried to imply I wouldn't be able to support myself or the baby. They even tried to use my current unemployment against me, conveniently leaving out the fact that I left my job because of their harassment. Melissa countered with evidence of my steady employment history and the emotional abuse I'd endured from Jake and his family. She also pointed out that Jake had been unemployed for months while I continued to work and contribute financially. She presented some of the text messages and emails I'd saved, which showed Jake pressuring me about the pregnancy and siding with his mother. The judge seemed sympathetic to my situation. She granted a temporary order preventing Jake or his family from contacting me directly. All communication now has to go through our lawyers. It's a relief not to have to deal with their constant calls and messages. On a more positive note, I started a new job last month. Remember that marketing firm in Riverdale I mentioned in my last update? Well, I got the job. It's an administrative position, and so far, I really like it. My new boss, Diane, knows about my pregnancy and the divorce and has been very understanding and supportive. She's even offered to be flexible with my schedule for doctor's appointments and when the baby comes. The job is a bit of a commute, but I'm enjoying the change of scenery. It's nice to be in a place where no one knows about my personal drama. My coworkers are friendly, and it feels good to be focusing on work again instead of constantly worrying about my home life. I've also found a small apartment that I'll be moving into next week. It's not much, just a one-bedroom place in an older building, but it's clean and in a safe neighborhood. The landlord was willing to work with me on the deposit, which was a huge help. My mom and some friends are helping me move and get set up. It feels surreal to be starting over like this, but also exciting in a way. The pregnancy is progressing well. I'm now 6 months along and definitely showing. I found out I'm having a little girl, which makes everything feel even more real. I've started buying a few baby things here and there as I can afford them. My mom surprised me with a beautiful wooden crib that she found at a yard sale and fixed up. It meant so much to me, a reminder that even though things are tough right now, my baby girl is already so loved. Jake's reaction to finding out about the baby's gender was unexpected. He showed up at my mom's house, violating the no-contact order, with a pink teddy bear. He was crying and begging me to reconsider the divorce. He swore he changed and wanted to be there for our daughter. He said he'd found a new job and was looking for an apartment so we wouldn't have to live with his parents. For a moment, I felt myself wavering. Seeing him there, talking about our daughter, brought back memories of the good times we'd had. But then I remembered all the times he'd let me down, all the times he'd chosen his mother over me and our child. I told him to leave and that any future communication needed to go through our lawyers. After he left, I called Melissa to report the violation of the no-contact order. This experience made me realize how much I've grown over the past few months. 6 months ago, I might have taken Jake back out of fear or a misplaced sense of obligation. Now, I know I deserve better, and more importantly, my daughter deserves better. There have been some unexpected bright spots in all of this. My coworker Tori, who's also a single mom, has become a good friend. She's been giving me tips on everything from budgeting for baby expenses to how to handle daycare. We've started having lunch together regularly, and it's nice to have someone who understands what I'm going through. I've also reconnected with some old friends from high school who I'd lost touch with over the years. When they heard about my situation, they rallied around me. Last weekend, they threw me a small baby shower. It wasn't anything fancy, just a few of us in my mom's backyard, but it meant the world to me. As for Jake's family, they've been surprisingly quiet lately. I think the judge's order scared them a bit. Linda still tries to spread rumors around town, but most people have stopped listening to her. A few of Jake's relatives have reached out to me privately to offer support, which was unexpected but nice. There's still a long way to go in this process. We have more court dates coming up, and we'll eventually need to work out a custody arrangement. But I'm feeling stronger every day. I'm excited to meet my daughter and start our life together, whatever challenges may come. I'm learning that it's okay to take help when it's offered, and that being strong doesn't mean doing everything alone. I'm grateful for my support system and for this community that has offered such kindness and encouragement. To anyone out there in a similar situation, wondering if they should leave, trust your gut. You're stronger than you know, and you deserve to be happy and respected. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. You've got this. Update 3. It's been 4 months since my last update, and I can hardly believe how much has changed. The biggest news is that my beautiful daughter, Sophia, was born 3 weeks ago. She's perfect and healthy, weighing 7 pounds 2 ounces, with a full head of dark hair. I'm completely in love with her. The birth was complicated. I went into labor 2 weeks early, just as I was finishing up my last day of work before maternity leave. In the rush to get to the hospital, I didn't think to call anyone but my mom. Jake found out through a mutual friend and showed up at the hospital about an hour after I was admitted. I was in too much pain to deal with him, so my mom ran interference. She said he could wait in the waiting room if he wanted, but he wasn't allowed in the delivery room. I had already decided I only wanted my mom with me during the birth. Linda showed up an hour later, causing a scene and demanding to be let in to see her grandchild being born. She was yelling about grandparents' rights and threatening to sue the hospital. Security had to be called to remove Linda, but Jake stayed in the waiting room. After 18 hours of labor, Sophia finally arrived. The moment I held her for the first time was indescribable. All the stress and drama of the past months faded away, and I knew that everything I'd been through was worth it for her. Once I was settled in the recovery room, I agreed to let Jake come see her briefly. Watching Jake hold Sophia for the first time was surreal. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the man I fell in love with. He looked at her with such awe and tenderness. But then reality came crashing back when Linda barged in, having somehow talked her way past the nurses. She immediately started criticizing everything: my decision to breastfeed, the baby's name, which she declared common, even the outfit I had picked out to bring Sophia home in. Jake just stood there, saying nothing to defend me or our daughter. It was like watching a replay of our entire relationship in miniature. That was the moment I knew for certain I'd made the right choice in leaving. Sophia deserved better than a father who wouldn't stand up for her and grandparents who saw her as a prop in their family drama. The divorce was finalized last month, just in time for Sophia's arrival. We have a temporary custody agreement in place. Jake gets supervised visits twice a week. So far, he's only shown up for half of them. He always has excuses: work, traffic, not feeling well. I try not to let it bother me. Sophia and I are doing fine on our own. Linda has been relentless in her attempts to be involved. She's shown up unannounced at my apartment several times, always with some gift for Sophia that I simply must accept. Last week, she brought a ridiculously expensive designer dress, never mind that Sophia's still in onesies at this point. I've had to threaten legal action to get her to back off. Despite the drama, I'm happier than I've been in a long time. My new job has been incredibly supportive, offering me a flexible schedule that I adjust to life as a single mom. I'm able to work from home 2 days a week, which has been a huge help. My mom comes over almost every day to help out. She's been an absolute lifesaver, especially in these early weeks when I'm still figuring everything out. Seeing her with Sophia makes me appreciate even more everything she did for me as a single mom. I've also connected with a great group of other single moms through a local support group. We meet once a week, and it's been so helpful to talk with other women who understand what I'm going through. We share advice, vent about our exes, and celebrate each other's victories, no matter how small. Sophia is thriving, and watching her grow and change every day is the most amazing experience. She's starting to smile now, and I swear my heart melts every time. Yes, it's exhausting and overwhelming at times, but it's also incredibly rewarding. Financially, things are tight, but we're managing. I'm still on maternity leave, but I've been doing some freelance work on the side to bring in a little extra money. Jake is supposed to be paying child support, but it's been sporadic so far. My lawyer is working on enforcing the agreement. I won't pretend it's all been easy. There are nights when Sophia is crying and I'm exhausted, and I wish I had a partner to share the load. But then I remember the stress and unhappiness of my marriage, and I know I made the right choice for both of us. Looking back on everything that's happened over the past year, I'm proud of how far I've come. I stood up for myself and my daughter, and I'm building a life that's authentic and true to who I am. It's not the life I imagined for myself, but in many ways, it's better. Sophia and I have our challenges ahead, but we also have love, support, and each other. And really, that's all we need.